Facebook should be.
All right, it is Thursday at 3 o'clock. We're here for Live at Epiphan.
Yeah.
It's episode 113.
Is it?
It is.
So it is.
Oh man, I'm feeling kind of rusty. It's been a few weeks since we've done the show.
Yeah, I got a bit of a break. I had a
Lisa's done more
vacation in
shows.
there.
You go on vacation? You take
Very
vacations?
rarely.
Wow.
Very
That's
rarely.
impressive.
Yeah, so I don't know what's happening. I'm kind of
Today we're doing a very special episode. We're doing a subscriber interview episode, so a format that we're probably going to revisit in the future. We've got an interview with Tim Trott. He is one of our most prolific. He's on our chat every week.
Especially
he's
today.
chatting. Yeah, he's blowing up our chat today. Him and Linda are just going crazy.
So it's
on
great
there.
to see you in chat, Tim. And what that means is when we go through that interview, if people have questions about some of the things specifically that he brings up,
That's right.
you could ask him directly in chat since he's there. So that's awesome.
So we're going to get into the interview in a few minutes. And just full disclosure, we did record the interview earlier this week because Tim does live down in Florida. Not the best internet connection down there.
Yeah.
So we just opted for the earlier interview. That way we didn't have any connectivity issues.
Exactly. Just made sure that we could fix it in post.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, which could be helpful.
Totally.
But there's lots of other people in chat. Marta in California saying hi to everyone. Linda's saying hi to everyone. Faithful Mess is saying hi to everyone. Tim's obviously there. So welcome, everyone.
Yep.
Awesome.
And Marta, if you can find more famous dogs, we'll bring them on the show.
Sure, why not? I guess
Harvey the Hound.
we'll cover some news.
Yeah, let's
The
go over
news.
the Epiphan news.
Yeah,
What am I
so
doing? I'm just,
this
like,
first one's kind of
destroying my
interesting
hair
and,
right now.
and kind of unsurprising, and I suspect we're going to see more and more of this stuff happening, but Facebook has started imposing more restrictions on live streaming in terms of trying to cut things off when they're inappropriate. So a lot of this is the fallout from the very unfortunate incident in New Zealand. And so it took quite a long time for that stream to be taken down, which is very traumatic for anyone involved in that incident.
The stream was reported. There was people
and
obviously letting Facebook know that it was inappropriate content.
And it still took too long. It took about 15 minutes for it to come down, and that's a big thing. So they're working on this whole other thing. They're working on strike policies. You know, YouTube has had that for like copyright stuff, but not. And there is community guidelines on YouTube as well. Facebook never really had that, so they're creating a structure for that, I guess.
We have the same policy at home. One strike and you're out. That's it.
It's supposed to be 3.
Just at home it's one strike, you're out.
3 strikes.
So yeah, no 3 strikes. But it is a bigger issue for Facebook.
Yeah.
So obviously they're dealing with a lot of different hate groups on there, and it's not really the point of the platform, right?
No.
Like, you want to have.
I think that the tough part is, and I've been watching a lot of this stuff, is that there's this fine line to walk sometimes between making a platform safe while not infringing on people's free speech rights.
Totally.
So it's a tough line to walk. Of course, at the end of the day, it all boils down to the reality of they are private platforms. You do not have a right to use these platforms. It's,
Well, the Constitution of the United States does not apply to Facebook.
To Facebook, no, it
so
doesn't.
if they don't like what you're saying, they're not going to let you say it. And in
Exactly.
general, too, it's not like I don't go to Facebook to catch up on my hate groups. Some people do. Some people do.
definitely
But that's
do.
really not the point of the platform.
No.
The point of the platform is to connect high school students together, have folks that you went to high school with bug you with direct messages,
Yeah, I'm
and
not
to
interested
get
in that.
advertisements from your cookies. So
Yeah, exactly.
it is not a hate
sell you.
platform.
It's meant to sell you things.
Exactly.
But yeah, everyone has these things, so it's interesting the system we're going with. We'll see how that evolves. You know, Twitch has their own 3-strike, various degrees of banning. So that'll be an interesting one. We'll see how that goes. So there's articles,
and
of
with
course,
Facebook too, it's not just your live streams. So if you have a hate platform or like a group where you're posting inappropriate messages, those will go
shut
against your strikes. So
Yeah.
it's not just Facebook live streaming. If you post something that's against their community guidelines in general, then that'll go against your ability to stream and your ability to create content and your ability to run ads, which all makes sense. If you're doing this stuff on there, you're not being a team player, then you shouldn't be allowed to play.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of authoritarian governments and live streaming.
Yeah. I don't even know how to pronounce this, so this one's all you.
Well, it's think of Al Pacino in that lawyer movie where he was blind.
Yeah,
right?
okay. Yeah,
Huya! So it's
Huya.
and I'm behind on my graphics here.
Yeah, your
hey, there's
graphics.
Facebook. There's
Oh,
a Facebook
yeah, we
thing
talked
we
about
just
that.
talked about, and then Huya. So this is Garfield's live streaming platform out of China.
Cyclops Garfield.
Cyclops Garfield. I've got like a. I'm gonna point it out with my mouse there. I've got
it's
that
a play button
on
and his
there.
giant
That's great,
eyeball.
and he has play teeth as well. It looks like.
This is very weird.
But all jokes aside, Huya is China's largest live streaming provider.
Interesting.
So everybody is live streaming in China. They're live streaming everything, which is crazy because China is not like...
They're behind the Great Firewall.
Yeah, exactly, behind the Great Firewall.
But
There's a lot of censorship.
Billions of people.
They do have billions of people. So this is a huge platform in China. They are really big in esports, and now they're coming to the United States. So they're making a play at being part of the U.S. market. They're already a publicly traded company in the United States. They're doing very well. And they're also starting to invest in their own esports teams in the United States market. And that's they're going to see some big revenue from that. Because as they're investing in these teams, those teams are going to do well.
Yeah,
I'm
curious to see where that goes, because there's been older platforms that kind of went away as Twitch became the mainstay for most of the esports related stuff. So that'll be an interesting one. We'll have to see.
Well, and I didn't get from the article that they're going to be limiting themselves to like one platform specifically, but they're going to be investing in esports teams that are playing in other spots.
So they'll be sponsoring. Right. Okay, interesting. Yeah, so we'll have to see how that goes, but that could be fascinating kind of developments as another platform or just a source of revenue to build up some of these things. So
and awesome. Like I've looked at some popular streamers in China. Obviously, there's a language barrier, but huge followings.
You don't speak
huge
Chinese?
Not as frequently as I would admit. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Rubbing my mic. We're doing a little preview on the ASMR there.
We're not actually doing that, are we?
Oh, you wait. I'm gonna get those plastic earlobes in here.
It's not my thing, man. It's not my.
I haven't seen his faithful mess on there today.
Yeah.
But let's. So we're gonna jump into our interview in a moment. So let's jump onto the.
We'll cover one more piece. One more piece. Because this was cool news. SVOD.
Oh, that's right. That's right. So Silicon Valley opened doors.
Yeah.
So last week, our team in Palo Alto, joined by a couple of our team members down from Ottawa there, so just say one team member from Ottawa. So they went down to SVOD. SVOD is this really cool event where you get to meet directly with investors in Silicon Valley. You pitch. So it's this huge pitch session. There's individual breakouts. There's training. And what we did kind of as a little bit of an experiment was testing out how to live stream the event, do it from different angles, doing some switching. So we actually live streamed the entire event to Twitch, and we did all of that remotely.
Yeah,
which is very cool, because usually you have your production team on the ground, on site. You know, they're boots on the ground. So it's kind of a combination of both. We did still have boots on the ground for technical issues and troubleshooting.
But part of this was an experiment of how much can you do remotely and how effective can you be.
Exactly.
So I'm sure down the road we'll have interesting news coming out of that as that experiment went on, and more to do, of course. There's always learning experiences from those. But of course, last week, you know, Marta and the team down in Palo Alto did the show about SVOD a little bit as well. Which I did not watch because I was on vacation. So sorry, Marta.
Yeah, sorry guys. I tuned in for a little bit. I got on there, I trolled, and then I had to get my eyes back on the road. So I was driving.
So yeah, that's the news. There's a lot of stuff in chat here, actually, I want to cover before we dive into the interview as well. So a lot of people, I got to scroll way back here in chat. People were asking about, talking more about our configuration for each show. I guess because for 2 weeks, Palo Alto was hosting the show, and people notice how different their setup is from ours. Honestly, our setup here doesn't change that often at its core. As you guys know, or should know by now, the core of everything we do in the studio here is running off of a Pearl 2, and then we just kind of add and remove various different HDMI sources to it depending on what we might need for a given show. But for the most part, that core, sort of the main hub of what's running it, doesn't really change. Of course, there's an audio mixer, microphones, we kind of change things every now and then. You know, we've gone to lavs instead of the boom.
That's right.
And the shotgun. We sometimes swap the camera out because we need to borrow the camera for something else.
That's correct.
So we'll change between the C100 and the A6300, just depending on demands for the equipment or for other tasks. But for the most part, not much changes that often here, at least not recently.
We have our core setup, and we experiment with different ways of doing things. So one thing that actually has changed for this week is instead of running the titling locally off my computer here, we're running it off the Nuke.
Yeah.
And we're still doing that via Chroma. Oh, sorry, via Chroma as an HDMI input from our Nuke. We're using one of our grabbers as well, so we can free up one of the ports on the back. But further down the line, one of the enhancements, now that we have NDI, and we're working towards NDI Alpha, is that we'll be able to do that. Whatever. We'll be able to do that as well. So check out, wait for some updates on that.
Yeah, no, exactly. We're playing with those things. I think Linda brought up an idea for a future show talking about maybe trying to cover noob level setups, new people setups. And I know where she's asking this question from. And part of that is, you know, what about people just trying to break into the streaming market? What are they trying to do? You know, it's become this weird viable thing for young adults and even teenagers to make a living at, if you're into such things. And, you know, how do you do that? So there's a lot of different ways, and maybe that is a show we can look at doing in the future. You know,
well, as robots take over more and more of our jobs, we're all just going to be live streaming,
funny
and
enough,
that'll be our revenue source.
There's a piece of gear sitting on the top shelf in that room right over there that we looked a lot at NAB. We passed by their booth a couple times. And that piece of gear might be interesting to a lot of people.
Can you remind me what that was?
Yes, we'll talk about it later.
All right.
But that one could be an interesting subject to cover. Yeah, and then let's see. Yeah, people just talking about our hair and our shirts and everything like that.
Yeah, sorry guys, a little bit disheveled here. I have been commuting between Alberta and Ontario. We've mentioned it a couple of times on the show, and we finally made the big move. So in the last week or so, I think Cameron's move has been tough on him, Marta.
Yeah, a little bit.
Lots of comments on your hair.
Back off, Marta.
Yeah, that's
actually, it's
true.
funny. Marta sent me a nice card welcoming me to the Ottawa area. But we have finally settled in Ottawa. We just took possession of a new home yesterday, and we're very excited. There's black flies in Ontario. I'm covered in bites.
Yeah,
we made a terrible mistake, but
you have.
It's too late.
Yeah, you moved to the country in Eastern Ontario. You have made a terrible mistake.
You're just going to come in smelling like DEET every day.
Well, exactly. If anyone doesn't know, black flies are Satan themselves, and if you've never lived in a country where they exist, you are lucky. I did that for a long time. So great chat in here as well, so we'll let people chat there. I guess the only other thing, which kind of comes, I need to get a haircut too, but part of that is because in a couple of weeks we'll be
which one?
Infocom.
All of them? Oh yeah, of course we have Infocom, and that's in June.
Trimmed and dressed nicely for Infocom coming up. So anyone who is thinking about attending Infocom, we keep putting some socially things out there. We probably have passcodes and all that kind of usual stuff. So
we'll throw that in the description as well.
Especially, people in Florida like Tim.
Tim will be
in
there.
Orlando, so it'll be awesome.
Tim is planning on going to Infocom this year.
So if anyone's planning on being in Orlando second week of June, we'd love to say hi, and you can come by our booth and chat. And like I say, just follow us on social media, Facebook and all those things. And we keep posting about our booth number and all that stuff. So, speaking of Tim, maybe we should get to that interview.
Yeah, let's go for it. All right, Tim, so thank you so much for joining us today. Why don't you introduce yourself real quick for the viewers at home?
My name is Tim Trott. I operate Tim Trott Media Productions and a few other things.
And we'll get into that in a couple of moments, Tim. Now, you're one of our longtime viewers. You're an active member on our chat group, which is great. And we're doing this episode today to, get in touch with some of our viewers on the show. So this is our first subscriber feature interview that we're doing. Now, you've been in the industry for a little while. So why don't we start off with talking about how you got into the production industry?
I was introduced into video and that sort of thing when there was a presentation at the high school I went to that was for junior achievement. And what junior achievement is, I don't even know if they're still around anymore, is they bring high school students into a business situation, and then they set up a corporation, in effect, a dummy corporation, and that corporation as a group performs some particular task. In our particular case, the sponsor was WESH Channel 2 in Orlando, and our show was a weekly Saturday hour-long TV show, which had a number of, it was kind of a variety show of sorts. And we sold and wrote commercials. We did interviews. There were people that were on camera and people that were doing all of the production part of it. There was one individual that got to be the technical director. There were a couple of people who ran camera. My task was film editing and writing commercials. I actually did one commercial, so we got our feet wet in broadcasting. And I went from there to working for a brand new TV station that was starting in St. Petersburg. That was WLCY TV10 for Great Tampa Bay, which is now WTSP, and a whole string of others after that, doing everything from film editing, camera, floor directing, everything in the industry. So that's where I got into it.
That's really cool that the school had that program for you to get in early. You said you were editing, so what kind of equipment were you using to edit way back in high school?
Way back then, editing involved razor blades and glue and something called a hot splicer and something called a moviola that ran on cranks. So you would put the film, the 16 millimeter sound down film, into this little viewer. It was light bulbs, no LEDs, and you'd sit there and crank the cranks and run the movie through and to where you wanted to make the splice, and then you'd cut it with a razor blade and put the film together the way you wanted it to go and put the whole thing together. And then you take it over to the viewing room and see what happened and hope the splices didn't break when they put it on the movie of the week at night.
Because we call that, like we call editing, non-linear editing nowadays, but that was literally linear editing back at that time, right? Because if you cut something off at the front, then you had to think about what you were doing on the other end as well.
And the fun thing about it was, in many cases, you would borrow these films from somebody that was cycling. One in particular case, we did a segment on cities in Florida, and the Chamber of Commerce would send us these little movies, and they would be usually 30-minute films, and we'd cut them down to 3.5 minutes for the feature we were doing. And then all the pieces you took out of that film, you had to glue back in the right order. So we'd had a system where we'd take out the piece, put it on a little tiny 3-inch reel, and put numbers on it, and then you have to glue it all back together, make sure it went back the way, and then you send it back to where it came from.
Now, over the years, you've worn a lot of different hats. Which one would you say is the most rewarding between being a floor producer and editor? You've obviously done some camera work as well, but what was the most rewarding role that you've had over the years?
I still wind up in some way or other wind back in editing. And the funny thing is the reason that I like live production is that it is a form of editing that is immediate. It's right now. So in video editing, you have to imagine what you're going to do, then you're going to find the pieces, and then you got to do it. The value of live streaming and webcasting is that you plan it in advance and you decide where you're going, and you keep a little score sheet. I've got a little score sheet that I use for my switcher somewhere around here. And then you do it live, and when it's done, it's done. And whereas the process before, you've got 2 or 3 or 4 different flash drives, and you inboard all of those, and then you've got to synchronize them together. We used to have a very expensive program, I can't think of the name of it right now, which would synchronize for us. Premiere and some of the other programs will do it for you now, but back in the day, you'd have to line them up with the software, and then you'd be doing the TD stuff as it's running in real time, and then you make your correction. That's the only thing, is you make corrections with live video. Of course, once it's done, but hopefully everybody forgot it. When it's recorded, it'll come back to haunt you.
Now, you've seen a lot of changes, a lot of improvements. What would you say has, how has video production improved technology-wise since you started?
I come from an era when there were things called tubes, and I think I sent you some pictures. Maybe you can insert them, PIP them into the view. A videotape recorder was the size of a large freezer. The cameras were extremely large as well. By the time I got into it, they were just starting out with color. And they got a little bit smaller, a little bit tighter, but a dolly was a hydraulic operation and took 2 people to run. In fact, one of my jobs was just to keep the cables from getting run over with the cameras in a live. We did a remote dance show with TV10 one time, and those big, humongous, 200, 300, 400-pound cameras on hydraulic rollers, and my job was keep the cameras from running over the cable. So my job was to keep pulling the cable so they didn't run over them while they were doing a dance show, which was kind of fast-paced.
You mentioned that you and your wife do some work together. What kind of video production work do you do nowadays?
Meetings, corporate meetings. We did a convention for the Flight School Association of North America, which I happen to be a member of in my aviation connections. And I'm trying to get into, I would love to be, my dream is to do a TEDx conference, but I'm having a difficult time connecting with those people. They make it hard to reach them. I got a brochure, I think I sent you a copy of it that I've been trying to mail out to various. So we're just in the beginnings. We don't really know where this is leading. All we know is that broadcasting, which I was a part of back in the 60s when there were 2 and 3 TV stations, we didn't know what we were going to do with 100 cable channels. What in the world are we going to do with a couple of million, YouTube channels?
Well, it's unlimited, right? It's basically an unlimited number.
There's a slogan I've come to rely on, which is, it's got in fact, I found a graphic for it. It's got a bunch of hands and then a globe that has all kinds of media representations. And it is, in fact, we are the media. Back in the day when cable was just starting, they had this dream of having two-way cable. Well, that never happened, but we have two-way now. With a chat going on and the feedback and all the rest of it, we have realized what they had dreamed of, back in that time.
How do you find producing content now? Is it easier than it was before, or because there's so many different options and different applications and programs, it's just more complicated?
That's what's so exciting about it. You can do so much. Back in my day, film was on 16 millimeters, and you had to have a pre-roll, and you had, and right now you just, you punch a button on your X keys, and there it is.
Yeah.
So that's the beauty of it, and everything is you have so much more flexibility, and you don't have to coordinate 30 people to get done. You just, get it done.
So you find it's easier nowadays because you don't have as many moving parts. You don't have to coordinate with as many people.
Let me put it this way: I got out of the business for about 20 years, and what it is now is what brought me back.
Okay. So what do you do with UAVs or drones?
I operate as the drone professor, and I wrote this book on how to study for the professional license test. And I go around various, mostly law enforcement, public safety people all over the country, and I give classes on how to pass that test, how to set out, and the other things that are involved in public safety and police operations using UAVs and dealing with the public. I wrote an article for a magazine called had to do with law enforcement response to drone complaints, because that is an issue. And the local law enforcement is not the FAA, but they have a job to do in relation in between the public and the FAA, and so that is a very fine line they have to walk on. Then I think you asked the question, what certification? There are no, like in regular aviation, that you have your flight instructors or CFI, certified flight instructor. There is no such for the drone business. There are a lot of CFIs that are teaching that business. In my particular case, since I'm dealing with teaching law enforcement, I have a certification from the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. I took a training course on how to write courses, how to write questions, and how to present, create material for study for law enforcement. So that's basically where I'm using that. Although it's not just in Florida. In fact, I've taught a few classes in Florida, but I taught one in Boston. I've got one in Michigan coming up next month. I've done a whole string of them in the Houston area right after the flooding and everything. They sent me over there to get a lot of people up to speed so that they could start their own drone departments, so they could survey the damage and coordinate the emergency activity. The water was still over some of the bridges when I went in to teach that class.
So are you educating law enforcement so that they know how to enforce the rules, or are you educating them so that they can use their own drones for operations?
One of my courses, I've got 15, 20 courses, and one of them has to do with dealing with the public and law enforcement response to drone complaints. The others are how to operate at night, because there's special training you need to operate at night, how to be legal, either get to pass the 107 commercial license, or the public safety has the option of doing what's called a COA, a certificate of authorization or waiver, which they take some of the responsibilities of the FAA themselves. They still have to coordinate with the control towers and the rest of the aviation operations. So they have to learn a lot. They have to learn what a pilot knows, and then they have to go beyond that to dealing with the specifics of unmanned aerial vehicles. I had one for a while. I got into the business. I liked the teaching better, so I've got them over here in a box behind me. And the last time I took it out was to survey the damage for the hurricane, because we live in Panama City area, and I sent you a couple of pictures of what our house looked like. And so I actually used my own drone to go look at what the roof was like.
Saves you having to get up on the ladder there for sure. In Canada, we have different guidelines for hobbyists and folks that are doing it professionally. Is it similar in the United States?
We've got 3 different divisions. One is the hobby, and that just got made more strict with some new regulations that came through. The hobby people are not too happy to find out they're going to have to take a test about near the end of the year. November 16th is the deadline for taking a test. And we're right along with the commercial. It's not the same test as the commercial operators because they're not under the same kind of pressures. But they also need to stay out of the way and safety concerns. Safety is the number one concern. And you get into the aerospace, you got to learn how to play the game and stay out of trouble. And you need to know what the other people are doing and the rules they're dealing with. There's so many people that buy a drone at a hobby store and they take it out. They have no idea that there are different classes of airspace, different restrictions in each one. Distances you have to maintain from them and altitude restrictions and all the rest of it. They think it's just a toy, go play with it. They have no idea of the seriousness of what's involved. They're about to find out.
Well, you don't want to find out the hard way, either if you're up against an FAA fine or if you cause an accident or anything like that.
That's the key, is causing an accident. There have been some near misses. So far, there hasn't been anything really serious. There have been a lot of things in the news. For example, one of the things I mentioned in my course is that somebody was flying a drone near one of the highways near Tampa, Florida, and they lost control of it or something, and it came down in the middle of traffic. And luckily, nobody ran into anybody, but it did do a lot of damage. Unfortunately, the car that they managed to hit was a Mercedes, and just hitting the grill turned out to be rather expensive.
You're one of our weekly viewers on the show, and we're curious, what keeps you coming back every week?
Just love the group that's there and the stuff you guys present, and I'm always open to learning things. And in fact, there are several shows that I watch. And hold on just a second.
Yeah, of course, Tim.
A little interruption there.
No, it's all good. I saw something on your shirt when you jumped up. What do you have on your shirt there, Tim?
You like that? That's my webcast live shirt.
Hey, there you go. Did you get that just for the show today?
I made that some time back, and I figured it was appropriate. And then I thought, gee, why not do this right? So you can get one just like it if you go to cafepress.com/webcast.
We'll make sure to throw the link up on our show there for you. Maybe we'll sell a few shirts. Now,
it's my own artwork. I'm my own art director as well.
There you go, man with many hats, right? Now, Tim, you said that you like the community engagement. So, is there any communication that you have with other viewers on the show that's outside of the show, or is it just during the live chat every week?
No, actually, a lot of stuff in the chat, but also I connected with one of the viewers that we had a little conversation going on in the chat, and then extended into Facebook. And it turned out that I asked him what he does with his live casting and whatnot. He's doing weddings, which I've always been afraid of weddings. So maybe I might give that some consideration again. He's making a whole business out of doing live streaming of weddings. I did one funeral, wasn't too excited about doing that. But I've got to open my views a little bit to the other applications. One of the ideas I had was horse shows. I went online to see some people are doing horse shows in live streaming, and I'm looking at what they're doing and said, I can do that and I can do it better. So then I put my little brochure together and I mailed it out to a bunch of people in Ocala. We'll see what happens out of that.
Oh, down in Ocala. I've got my sister actually lives down there. That's really cool, and I would be nervous about it too. I think everyone that works in video production has had some involvement with wedding videos at some point. Zoe's nodding her head just off camera there. I know she's done some wedding work. And there's so much pressure when you're doing a wedding. I can't imagine how much pressure it would be doing it live. But at the same time, like you said earlier, once it's done, and right, you're not going back to it again and doing a big edit. It's just streaming it out live. And now, what would you say your favorite moment has been from watching the show?
Oh, I tried to go back and find it, but I thought you guys did maybe I've got it mixed up with something else, but I thought that you put the Webcaster X2 on a camera and went out walking through walking to a store that was prototypes or something. Am I thinking of?
Yeah, that was our colleagues down in Palo Alto, Phil and Marta, So what Phil,
Exactly, Marta. Yeah,
yeah,
right.
exactly. So what
And I
Phil
thought,
and Marta did was they built a shoulder rig, and
yep,
they jerry rigged it with an external battery, and I think Phil was tethered to his phone, and they went
hotspot,
to the with a
hotspot,
hotspot. Yeah,
everything.
he
Yeah,
was using a hotspot on his
yeah.
phone, and they went down to the Beta store in California. That was actually a really
Beta
fun
store.
episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, they looked at some really
That's the
cool
most
technology
memorable
there.
for me because that took a lot of thinking to put that package together and make it all work. And it worked. It worked beautifully.
Yeah, it worked really well. They actually had a good stream, and it was consistent, and the internet signal was good, which is pretty hard down in that area. Apparently, it can be pretty spotty for connectivity, believe it or not, in Palo Alto.
You also did at least one show in a car.
Yeah, there was an episode. I think it was episode 55, maybe 56. But what happened was they set up a Pearl 2 in the back of a car and used a power inverter. And that one we're going to revisit because just due to some connectivity issues, they weren't able to get out of the parking lot really, or out of the area here. So it would be nice. You may not be familiar with it, but we're very close to where the capital of Canada is in Ottawa. And going down to Parliament, there's a lot of beautiful sites. So that would be a cool episode in the future. But speaking of episode ideas, do you have any suggestions for future episodes that you might like to see from us?
I would like to see what other people are having success at with their how you market is direct mail work, because I'm trying direct mail. Do they buy Google ads? Do they do social media? Do you pass out business cards? Because I made a lot of businesses survive just on business cards, but that was 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Do you cold call? Do you call people on the phone? The stuff I'm doing with the Flight School Association, those are people that I know with associations I'm involved with. A few years ago, I haven't done anything live with them, but I did with an organization called ResNet, the Residential Energy Savings, whatever. At any rate, it has to do with fuel air efficiency of buildings. And did a number of conventions with them the old way with multiple cameras and editing and sort of thing. I'd love to do another one with them. Like I say, I'm looking forward to doing something. I would really love to do a TEDx. That seems like that would be a real nice challenge to do.
So you want to broadcast the TEDx, right?
Live stream it or at least record it. Okay. Because I watch those. Like television viewing is down by 40%. I know where it's going. It's going to live streaming and things like YouTube because I spend as many hours on YouTube as other people probably used to spend watching Game of Thrones.
There you go. Maybe not as
much.
Which
I've never seen, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Which I've never seen, by the way.
You're not missing anything. Now, I think that's a great idea for an episode. We'll take a look at how folks are marketing their businesses, where they're seeing the most success. I think just judging from Zoe's reactions off camera, sounds like social media is where to be when it comes to marketing, especially nowadays. Because if you can't find someone on Facebook, or on Twitter or on Instagram, that's where the path stops for a lot of people doing research into a company. So I think having a solid Facebook page is definitely the way to go, but I think we should explore that and see what other folks are doing and how they're finding success.
I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Is there anything else you'd like to share with us today, Tim? Anything else you want to talk about?
No, I think that pretty well covers it.
Okay. Well, Tim, thank you so much for joining us today. It sounds like you've got some business coming in on the phone, so you don't want to miss that call, and we'll let you go. But thanks again for joining us, and we hope to see you every week and continuing with contributing on the show and participating like you have been.
I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Tim. We really appreciate it.
Whoa, delays.
Could you hear any of that?
I couldn't hear anything you said.
I'm so sorry, guys. Everyone on the chat, thank you for the heads up. The audio was a little bit low.
You left your editing skills in Calgary?
Well, no, I have these really nice Sennheiser headphones, and I sit in my editing booth, and everything sounds great. And I've made this mistake countless times, where I don't actually try to play back what I've just made off of a computer with regular speakers. So I do apologize. Thank you for everyone. Thank you for everybody's patience on the chat.
Sorry about that.
And you probably had to crank it up when I was talking and then bring it back down when Tim was talking. But
yeah,
I do apologize. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, exactly. Next week, we'll have a different video editor. Cameron will be...
Next time.
So again, thanks guys for your patience on that. Things happen.
Yeah.
But one of the things I found interesting in there, just is kind of funny anecdote. Tim had that story about drones falling on people's cars, and he was mentioning someone's Mercedes.
To talk about on that.
Yeah, and a number of years ago, a car club I used to be a part of had done a big group drive down to Montreal, and there's a particular meeting spot in Montreal where all the big car nerds meet, and this was a huge meet. Someone was flying a drone around the car meet, thought it was really cool, and they dropped a drone on a Lamborghini and broke the carbon fiber spoiler on the back.
It was probably just a carbon fiber decal, though, right?
No. It was a full carbon fiber spoiler, and it broke it, and then it bounced off and hit my colleague's car, which was not nearly as expensive. But yeah, that was. Got to be careful. That's why in Canada we have these new rules about not flying drones near anything ever.
Well, the rules are meant to be broken.
Yeah, well,
until you drop a Lambo on a drone on a very expensive Lambo. I'm just loading up the image. And actually, Lisa, if I can ask you just to flip us over to the news layout for a second. I just want to show the big recorder. So Tim did mention on the chat that this one didn't make it into the interview. But this is what a recorder used to look like for video back in the day. So, to put it to scale, this man is actually only 3 feet high, and this is a giant recording. No, this is a regular-sized man next to a irregular-sized recorder. So, and these devices are very expensive. I asked Tim in the interview, that didn't make it into the final cut, but I met a guy at NAB, and we were talking about numbers of old prices for recorders and external recorders and cameras, and he would have just a guy that would have to carry around the recorder, and the cable was like this thick, connected from the camera to the recorder. The camera would be like $45,000. The recorder's $35,000. And we're complaining about like, oh, this DSLR is $3,500. I can't afford this.
Yeah, no, it's a different world. I mean, it's followed the same path as computers, where super expensive, and then now is so inexpensive we take it for granted in terms of the miracle of technology we can actually get out of this stuff.
Totally.
We definitely appreciate guys like Tim who've been doing this a long time, and they have a lot of experience to really talk about the pains of how it used to be, and really how much of a luxury we live in, and how we get to do so much now with live streaming, especially, which is super cool.
And Tim was a natural. It was actually really fun talking to Tim. Whenever you referred to the radio stations or the television stations he used to work for, he would use like the announcer voice. So he'd say, I used to work at WXRP 99 in Orlando, Florida.
WKRP in Cincinnati?
Yeah, WKRP in Cincinnati. So that was pretty fun. And Tim did have a lot of experience, and one thing that I learned from Tim is that he's been drawn back into the industry basically by the ease of use and the functionality that we have today.
Yeah.
Because I would kind of expect someone to say, well, back in the day, it was a lot easier because we'd have like a 10-person crew, and it was just one kind of system, and there wasn't all these extra distractions and everything.
Exactly. But it's one of the things I mention all the time, especially, this is a little bit of a plug, guys, sorry, but especially with Epiphan equipment, one of the goals we have in terms of the usability and how we design things like the Pearl UI is to make sure that anyone can use it. It's accessible, so that you don't have to have someone who has a master's in this and 25 years experience. Pretty much anyone can pick it up and go with it, and that really starts to open up the possibilities in the market and what you might want to do. So,
and if you're going to balk at the price of a Pearl 2, try $250,000 for a 2-inch quad like that
exactly.
And it doesn't even come with that guy in the photo.
Right.
He's extra.
He's another $250,000.
Yeah, he's not included. He's not included.
So, really appreciate Tim for that interview. That was awesome. Can't wait to see you in Florida. That's going to also be awesome. That's only a couple weeks away, like I said, at Infocom. So that's going to be cool.
George is already putting lotion on.
I'm going to have to.
You're already getting ready on that.
I had to go with only one beach day on vacation, so I didn't come back as a lobster.
Why not Zoidberg?
Exactly. Why not?
Nope. Sorry. We just had a little pause there.
Weird.
That's okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, that was fun.
What are we doing next week?
I don't know. Not yet. We're kind of figuring it out. I've been a little distracted.
Schedule's a little off.
We've got a couple of things in the works. There's actually one that I'm tracking down for a Faithful Mess. So we will be doing an ASMR episode in the future. And I'll be reaching out for your suggestions on what we should eat and play with and cut.
What?
Well, you're cutting stuff and you're crunching things, and I've got a bag of what are they? The bugles.
I don't think this is in my contract.
Well, you should look at your contract again.
I didn't know my waiver gave me this much away. Anyway,
and other duties where required. That's that catch-all on
probably is in there. But yeah, we do have some other interesting stuff. Of course, the week of InfoComm, we'll try and do some stuff around the show. It's only a couple weeks away. We've got some other stuff coming as well.
And we'll be partnering up with Rave TV as well down at InfoComm. And
a lot more news coming about that. So anyone who's been to InfoComm or ISE in Amsterdam or several other big shows throughout the year, Rave Pubs, they're a media outlet. They do a lot of media and marketing and stuff like that around these shows. And we're going to be working with them closer than ever. And we've worked with them pretty closely all the time. So this is going to be really exciting for a lot of things we're going to do at InfoComm. And we'll see how that works out, because there's going to be some challenges and some interesting stuff. And we're really looking forward to working with them and sorting out how it's all going to come together.
Mukbang. I think that one's got through our censor. Yeah,
I did. Filter profanity. There's that button right there.
Oh, that's funny. And yes, actually, to jump over, can I override this one? Let's see if this will work. Hey, there we go.
Yeah.
Or maybe. But we are on Instagram, so we did a soft launch in the last little while. We're going to be firming things up, making it a little bit more official. But please take a look for us on Instagram. We are Epiphan Video, and we'll be posting.
I don't know nothing about the gram.
Oh, get out of here.
I'm too old.
Hashtag old guy. So we will be we'll be posting content on Instagram. It's going to be more of a behind the scenes. We're going to have some content showing off the office a little bit more, showing off our developers who love being on camera, people that have no interest in sharing their personal or business lives. But we're going to be putting some cool content on there. So please check us out.
And who's
watch
kicking
for our
that
stories.
off?
Well, actually, our new intern is going to be kicking that off. Our summer intern, Zoe Akiko, or Zoe A. Let's go with Akiko. So Zoe was our contest winner from NAB this year, and she's actually joined us on the team here at Epiphan. So she's going to be responsible for keeping the content flowing, and she'll be there when the bus comes if anything goes wrong.
Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to see what we get out of that, though I don't use Instagram at all.
I look forward to seeing how it works.
I don't know.
Yeah, don't worry. We'll cross-post
How do you access this gram?
To GeoCities or wherever you are.
Does a guy in a hat show up at your door with this gram? I don't know.
Mukbang is when you record yourself eating food. Very popular in Asia.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, probably on the Huya platform.
Yeah, we'll bring in some ramen.
Yeah, we could do that.
Yeah, that's a good sound.
I'm pretty sure in this office, though, we're all about pho, though.
The pho.
Anyway, Ottawa thing, too.
Show.
Anyway, okay, this is getting ridiculous. I think it's time to go. Thank you, everyone. Hope you enjoyed the interview. We'll see you next week.
3 o'clock.
Thursday.